Good afternoon. I'm Mike Kellstrom, and I'm co-chairman of the City Club's Special Programs Committee. Welcome to today's special program on Science Debate 2008, a national initiative that has made a serious effort to secure a debate about science and technology among the candidates for president. To date, no such debate has been announced in spite of the fact that scientific and technical factors underlie almost every important issue the candidates are addressing, from national security to energy, to global warming, to economic competitiveness. Our speaker today is Dr. Lawrence M. Krauss, a leader of this movement, who will address the City Club today for the third time. Dr. Krauss is Ambrose Swayze Professor of Physics, Professor of Astronomy, and Director of the Center for Education and Research in Cosmology and Astrophysics at Case Western Reserve University. He received his PhD from MIT in 1982 and then joined the Society of Fellows at Harvard. He was appointed as a professor of physics and astronomy at Yale in 1985 and then joined CWRU as a chair of physics in 1993, a position he held until 2005. In September 2008, unfortunately for us, perhaps fortunately for him, he'll take a new post as foundation professor and director of the Origins Initiative at Arizona State University. The author of 7 popular books, including international bestseller The Physics of Star Trek, Dr. Krauss is also a regular radio commentator and essayist for newspapers such as the New York Times and appears regularly on television. He's been particularly active in issues of science and society, leading the effort by scientists to defend the teaching of science in public schools and to help define the proper limits of both science and religion, as well as defending scientific integrity in government. Please welcome Dr. Lawrence Krauss.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the introduction, and it's nice to be here. I am still at Case for 2 more days, and they may even allow me to have an office after that. We'll see. And it's this is a topic I'm hoping we'll have some discussion about. So I plan to depart from my normal routine, which is to speak too long, and maybe give a little extra time for questions. I would have preferred, in fact, at this particular venue, although it wouldn't have been Wednesday, I expect it would have been Friday, if we'd had the 2 candidates here instead of me to talk about these issues, because the City Club would have been a wonderful place and a wonderful forum, in fact, for them to discuss issues that are central, as I'll talk about, in fact, that have lately been relegated to the periphery, but are central to our whole our whole society. And in fact, the movement that I've been involved with, Science Debate 2008, if you go to their webpage, the front of the webpage, it said since December that we're calling for a presidential debate in science and technology. And I'll read this for the podcast audience. Given the many urgent scientific and technological challenges facing America and the rest of the world, the increasing need for accurate scientific information in political decision-making, and the vital role scientific innovation plays in spurring economic growth and competitiveness, we call for a public debate in which the U.S. presidential candidates share their views on the issues of the environment, health and medicine, and science and technology policy. Not a revolutionary call, but nevertheless one that has produced remarkable resonance, I should say. So I want to give you a little history of this whole experience. In December of 2007, I wrote a piece for the Wall Street Journal, my first piece for the Wall Street Journal, in fact, trying to raise the profile of scientific issues in the presidential election. I had been part of a group in Aspen, Colorado, earlier that year in the summer, a science working group bringing together scientists, journalists, and some business people and some Washington people to try and explore how to better not only explain science to the public, but how to introduce science more effectively into public policy. And we talked about how to raise the profile of science. It was a presidential election year, and we thought, well, now's the time to do it, especially, and I've made no secret of this, and I've talked about it here in the past, especially because the last 8 years has seen in Washington an attack on scientific integrity. censorship of scientific information, stacking of scientific advisory committees by people who were incompetent. And there was a great concern about how we could change that. And we thought, well, maybe the presidential election is a way to increase the profile. So when I talked about this, I was talking to a few other people, and we decided to make a call for a presidential debate on science. Now, the interesting thing about this was that I was joined in this effort not by scientists, but by two Hollywood screenwriters and a journalist and a young science blogger. And I think that was important, by the way, that call and the steering committee was led not by a bunch of scientists, because the initial perception of many people is that scientists are just another lobbying group. We just want more money. And this is not the case. We were trying to in fact, positively affect our democracy. And I think it was very important that the driving forces, really, and in fact the leaders now of Science Debate 2008, I'm on the steering committee and an active member, but the CEO of that organization and the president of it are in fact not scientists. They're vitally interested in these issues because they care about the future of the country. Nevertheless, when I called for it, I didn't really think, I had no dream that it would be a reality. I called for it primarily as a way to have people realize that science and public policy are actually related. For many of the public, people think of science as something completely separate from politics. Now, science shouldn't be political, but science is of vital importance to politics because it's the basis of sound public policy. In fact, as Michael said, almost every major challenge we face in this country, every issue that the presidential candidates should be talking about, but aren't, national security, economic competitiveness, energy strategy, health, the environment, competitiveness, every one of these issues has a scientific basis. And the president should be playing a role. And as I put it in my December 6th piece, I said, can a president who is not comfortable thinking about science hope to lead instead of follow? Now, what amazed me when I made this call and when we created our organization is I thought we'd get some press, and we did. But the resonance that occurred, the incredible interest within weeks was amazing to me. And I want to just describe some of the things that happened within 2 months of our call. Within 2 months, we had co-sponsorship of this request for a debate by some of the major groups in the country, groups that are very hesitant to get into politics. The American Association for the Advancement of Science, the largest scientific organization in the world, took on this as co-sponsorship. But a much more conservative group, I'll skip the Council on Competitiveness for the moment, but generally much more hesitant to appear to be partisan in any way. The National Academy of Sciences, the National Academy of Engineering, and the Institute of Medicine, the three highest scientific bodies in the country, chartered to advise government on politics, not only agreed to co-sponsor such a debate, but in fact hosted in Washington if the candidates wanted to have it there. But it wasn't, those are two scientific groups, but the other important thing to point out is that there was a great resonance not just among scientists, but among business people, because they recognize that science is vitally important for the economy of this country. And the Council of Competitiveness signed on as a co-sponsor. It quickly became endorsed at that time, within 2 months, by nearly 100 leading American universities and other organizations, by 23 Nobel laureates, and again, within 2 months, 16,000 people, not just scientists, but legislators, media representatives, signed on to this request. CEOs of major corporations, let's say Craig Barrett, chair of Intel, Norm Augustine, former chair of Lockheed Martin, who was vital, who was, as I'll talk about, has played a role in promoting the need for research in science to build economic competitiveness. So that happened within weeks of our call, and I just had never expected that kind of resonance. And I finally began to think that maybe we might have a possibility of having a real substantive debate on these issues. We were concerned that candidates' views were not being heard, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I just want to point out what's happened since then. I went to the web page, and I didn't know if we'd have web access here, so I in very small print, so small that you can't read it, and